Well. Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. Wish you a very happy and healthy and even the best of the best and the happiest of the happiest on this nice little Sunday morning over here from Helsinki, Finland. It's the day after the 4th of July, so hopefully everyone's still all safe in Safu, having a good time yesterday. And I wake up to the new news that Kanye West is now running for president. So great, awesome, good. I love 2020. 2020 is the best year of all time, bar fucking none, and changed my mind on that shit. Anyways, plenty to talk about today on Bitcoin price action. We saw a small liquidity hunt to the upside yesterday, not really breaking any relevant regions. And for a lot of the people I know in the Discord actually taking positions off that, counter positions off that, which I want to congratulate you directly because that, heads up play. Good shit, man. Very good shit. So I want to follow up on that today. It's going to be actually more of a focus on short and medium term timeframes today because, high and macro term timeframes are more or less unchanged and probably just boring to repeat the same shit, And what else do I want to say? Yes, all programs are on sale for the next 2 weeks. That is for, essentially the summer sale, I suppose, as most people don't celebrate the 4th of July, but fair enough. And it's 20% off. No code is needed, but I would strongly implore you to watch all of the related videos with all the programs if you are interested in them, because they're gonna go into detail to explain who they're for, who they're not for, what to expect if you do decide to get into them. And I should also say, before even watching any one of these things, you can kind of disqualify yourself or qualify yourself actually rather easily just by knowing how much time you actually have, because if you don't actually have enough time to invest in these programs, you're not gonna be able to make anything out of it. Just like anything in life, if it's worth having, it's gonna require quite a bit of time investment, and these programs are no different for that. And themselves, just the content alone is 35 hours plus for the TA program, the options program. The neophyte program actually a lot less involved, as it's about maybe a third or fourth of that time frame, and obviously the content reflects that as well. It's for complete beginners. If you're not a complete beginner, it's not really going to be applicable to you. You're probably above that level. But for the other programs, definitely watch the videos. They're going to go into detail on it, and then you as an adult can decide for yourself if that's for you or not for you. Obviously, I should also mention that the Jewel is also on a 3-month sale package as well, for a discounted price with 20% off. If you do want to make a 3-month commitment with that. With this one, I always like to say, hey, if you're not already a profitable trader, meaning that something is missing from your entries, exits, and position management, this is it's a great tool. It's an amazing tool. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite tools, but it's not a magic pill. It's not a magic indicator. And if you are not already successful and you don't necessarily what's the word that I'm looking for, satisfy one of the 3 essential pillars of a successful trade, then you're going to get wrecked over time. It's just a matter of time. And then, of course, the new program as well from our partners, which we'll actually be building out in the future, is from Mr. Mournfall himself with his PineScript Mastery program, which will actually teach you directly from literal beginner to actually on how to make your own indicators in PineScript, which is what TradingView uses. So definitely check that out. And again, same thing here. Watch the videos that accompany them. That's going to be the best way to figure out very quickly if it's for you or not for you. And as always, man, I'm going to keep on doing these free content on YouTube anyways. And for most people, you don't need to get these programs just because the fucking YouTube channel is probably more than enough. And also, we have plenty of free content as well, of which the TA 101 playlist is a good place to start. Anyways, okay, what do we have here as I feel my butt? Okay, we got open interest still around that 1.9 billion marker with a B. And that's very interesting to me because if you were watching intentfully yesterday, which I actually was watching yesterday, although I wasn't really trading, and a lot of people called this out in the Discord, and credit to you as well for having that heads up play, we saw open interest go down. If you remember yesterday, it was actually a little bit higher than where we are, than where we were kind of in the interim between when we last spoke. And when Bitcoin price was having that spike up to about 9250-ish region, 9150-ish region, which saw open interest come down, which suggests that was likely shorts closing, creating that movement. People just want to, close their positions over the weekends, not hold on to extra risk during a holiday, especially when things aren't really moving to begin with. And what happens, the morning after? Fucking classic play that you see very, 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 very often on weekends. Bitcoin comes back down into kind of parity where it was before. Looking at all the other top end metrics, we don't really have anything new to talk about there, except for Bitcoin dominance is actually coming down quite significantly. So it does look like it's probably going to be worthwhile to check out some altcoins today. Fear and greed index also coming down a couple of points as well, healthily below 40 right now too. And I think it's time to get into the actual price action charts themselves. So start off with the daily. And what is the daily looking like? It's looking like a fucking downturn is what it looks like. I mean, Jesus Christ, man. How many times have we fucking seen this? Can you say the F word more, Krown? Fuck you, Kanye 2020. No, I'm voting for Greta 2020. Fuck you, Kanye. Fuck you, Trump. And fuck you, Biden. I'm voting for Greta because... she's a kid and you can't get mad at kids, so it's like a proxy war, it's fucking genius. It's fucking genius. Anyways, I actually do think Kanye would be a fun he'd be as eventful a president as Trump, in fact. Who knows, man. Let's get the Kardashians in the fucking White House. Why not? What is life, man? What is life? All right, so looking at the daily right here, we are going to see momentum oscillators very likely turn back to the downside. Having all these snakes within this region and then going down and confirming below the bearish control zone, which is actually what we did last night and will be fully confirmed with tonight's daily total closure anywhere here or lower, very likely will open up those, it will open up those momentum oscillators to the downside because we actually have a tool to tell us, which shows that 91.33 is the critical point for that, which is essentially the 10-cent moving average on the daily right here. So as long as we're riding that, as long as we're being governed by that, the trend continues essentially. So multiple ways of getting this from a momentum oscillator perspective, from support and resistance perspective, and also just from your general trend. I mean, there's your high, lower high, lower high, low, lower low, and well, what happens next? I mean, a third consecutive low very likely brings us back down to about 8,700-ish region would be the next area that I look towards. Now, keep in mind that the 2-day is still relevant as well with the green 55 exponential average showing a nice bounce area, maybe like $150 higher than that. So shorter term timeframes, I would be looking for bounces along the way. But overall, I do think that Bitcoin very likely heads back down to that level. Also in line with CMEs as well, kind of having a not the best close on Friday, not the worst close either, but it looks like continuation to me, at least for another try to the downside as the 10 simple and the 21 exponential average start to diverge away from each other, suggesting that trend is strengthening below that region. And more importantly, it offers up an edge. So yesterday I was speaking about this as well, because yesterday I'm obviously biased to the downside right here, but and someone asked a great question yesterday, a fucking phenomenal question. They said, Krown, what if you're wrong about Bitcoin going down? I'm wrong all the time, man. I'm fucking wrong all the time. But what allows me to stay in the game is that, well, one, I don't trade my opinion, but two, that's what risk management's for. And with kind of having a bias boner like that, I like those areas because there's a very clear and obvious area to be managing risk off of. And if we're looking at CMEs, the 30th of June is that area, because that would be your next lower high if this is continuation to the downside. And if we're looking at spot, that same area would be 9,300, the 30th of June high. If Bitcoin does head back above that region, I would look for a quick move up into the 9,550-ish zone, 9,550 to 9,600-ish region. Whoops, wrong chart. There we go. Yeah, into this area right here. About 9,550 to 9,600-ish region. But for right now, continuation is the name of the game, and the path of least resistance. Well, I shouldn't say that the path of least resistance is down, but the path of least resistance is sideways apparently. How long is Bitcoin going to bore the shit out of us for? Well, we are still watching it. So who's the joke on, really? Well, maybe me. Anyways, looking at historical volatility percentile, always want to remind myself that it is incredibly low. Suggesting that we're on the precipice of a multi-$1,000 move. Anytime that we've seen anything, we've never even seen anything this low for this long. That's actually the crazy thing. We've seen low reads before for like a week to a week and a half on end, of which September 2019 was a good one, coming back from this region right here. Before a 40% move to the downside and also to the upside over here from 4,000 to 14,000, but even that was not as crazy. Few examples in 2018, of course, essentially precipitating the major massive move to the downside right here, about 50% move. So I do think that we have something similar within the cards, somewhere between a 30 and 50% move is what we're looking at from this region. Now, the more sideways that Bitcoin can do within this region, meaning as long as it's essentially printing those higher lows, which if If you want to be super conservative, I'd say 8,700, although realistically, I'd say that this one works just as well at 9,000. We'd want to see that hold true, but if it can hold sideways above that level for, another few weeks, then yes, I would say that it would naturally start to switch back up to a bullish bias. But for right now, the ball's in the bear's court, and while I do think that they are on the clock here, and another week or two of sideways very likely does not imply that this is overall going to break down heftily to the downside. Within that time, and as long as especially we're below that last prior spike high at 9,300, I don't really see any reason to to be bullish as long as you're below 9,300. But more importantly, I don't really see any reason to not look for continuation from that time frames perspective in that same direction, which in this case would be down to 8,700 probably for a small bounce, and then the 200 exponential average is somewhere around this prior low right here at about 11th of May, 10th of May at 8,550, 8,600-ish region as well. I would be looking for a nice medium-term time frame bounce from that region, but keep in mind what are we essentially painting if Bitcoin bounces from that region? Well, one, it's a downtrend, but two, it's also a descending triangle at that point too. We would have a nice support trend line coming in around 8,550, 8,600-ish region, and then declining tops. So it's distribution. If you're familiar with Wyckoff terms, this is, first and foremost, looking like distribution right now, with the failure to get continuation of the upside on this try here on 21st of June. That's when that sort of that's when that sort of theory ideology took over, and buys started to switch from upside to the downside. And I do think, and I do still hold on to that. And there's very easily documentable pivot places to the upside. 9,300 right here, and then of course about 9,700 right here. Above 9,700, I would look for a move all the way up to 9,900, 10,000-ish region, but still, it's the same thing from the long term. So I really can't get long-term bullish for Bitcoin as long as it's below this blue box here. That gives us, a couple of nice ranges to be playing. Above 93, I look for a move up here, like I said, and above here, I look for a move up here, and that would make it look a lot more healthy overall. But just like it's given plenty of tests into that region already, I would be skeptical until we actually see like a 12-hour or a daily total closure above there. Maybe even a 4-hour does it as well, at the very least 9,900. But for right now, things are still, things are obviously very far away from there. I mean, it's about $1,000 away from price action currently. So is it that relevant to what we're talking about right now? Nope. But if Bitcoin does flip around, then you will start to naturally hear me bring on a more bullish tone, just like right now, because we're closer to breaking to the downside. Or I would even argue that we probably already have initiated like the real trigger for that, which was breaking this area right here, and getting retested on the 30th of June. And just kind of like, snailing around before getting ready for the next markdown phase. But yes, I do still hold on to that. And keep in mind that there is a measure move on this formation here as a Wyckoff pattern all the way down to the 0.5 fib here. So a great confluence, and also a nice horizontal coming in from the last major accumulation zone in December 2019. And also this big breakout here more recently in April 2020. So I like all of that for a potential target to the downside. But like I said, there will be bounces along the way. I'd have a particular interest right here at 87, one of these areas, either 87 or 85.50. 85.50 is a little bit more dependable for a decent bounce. And then if that area does break, I'd be looking for the 382 at 81.50. I'd be looking for another medium-term time frame bounce there at the very least. And then very likely that one fails, and I'd be looking for 75, maybe the 618 at 6,900. But I'd really want to see these ones in real time. We're getting way too far ahead of ourselves right now. And I said that I would focus on the short and medium-term time frames today. I'm not doing any of that. 4-hour looks absolutely shitty. Wow, that's abysmal. But hold on, let's make it look even worse. Fuck! My 4-hour on CMEs is about to get a death cross, which is not good. Now, of course, do you get snakes around? Do you get fake outs with these sorts of things? Yes, absolutely. It happens all the fucking time. Well, I shouldn't say all the time, but but when you have trend plus momentum oscillators on our higher term timeframes, plus a death cross on a time frame that does seem to hold quite a bit of weight for Bitcoin. Bitcoin seems to respect the 4-hour as the lowest time frame that holds the most weight for. Well, you can't really say that because it always does have a relationship, but the 4-hour seems to have like a good like time spent, time waiting for a trade to potential outcome. ratio. That's what I really do like about it. Anyways, you can see right here, volume is turning up on the downside. All of these downside moves, that's where the volume's coming in from. You see this one right here, you see this right here, you see this more recently right here. That is indicative of distribution, and especially this one right here. Jesus Christ, that is indicative of distribution. It feels like right now we're in the phase where, to make I think it's a poker analogy. It's called tapping the glass, from what I understand. I don't play poker myself, but I do know plenty of poker players because they seem to make really good traders. and what tapping the glass essentially means is, like, when you have less experienced players in a poker game playing with you that are essentially free money for an experienced player, you don't want to scare them at first. You might even want to let them win a few rounds here and there, and you want to kind of make them feel a sense of comfort so that they keep on playing. Well, that's essentially how I kind of view this as it is right now. Tapping the glass, each and every time it brings it down, but it's not any erratic moves. These are pretty orderly. They're very, they're very what's the word that I'm looking for? They're very unassuming, and then when you get your actual washout, that's when some panic happens. That's the word that I was looking for. There's no panic in these moves just yet, and I don't expect to see any panic until Bitcoin breaks like 85.50 for those sorts of players who are looking for this to break to the upside. But as these major moving averages start to switch around into bearish posturings, which of course Spot already has, the 4 hour did get a death cross right here, and guess where we got rejected on that last high on 30th of June. 9,300, right around the 200x benchmark average. Where did we get rejected yesterday? At the 55. Look how it's getting walked down. So when you do get a cross like this, you can judge the strength of it, because then you will get shoved naturally back down below the next lower period moving average as the bots and algos start to turn on their sell programs. And in this case right here, that's kind of what we saw first on June 30th, which we called out. And I don't say that to sound arrogant and like we called it, we knew. No, that's bullshit. It's just, we're just playing supporting resistance here. That fucking simple. But when you add all these tools together, then you can really see a greater picture of what the market movers, as I like to refer to them, are doing. And then where do we get rejected from yesterday? On a closing basis, the 55 gets respected. What's naturally going to happen as long as we're below the 55? These two moving averages are going to get more and more divergence away from each other, suggesting that it gets even stronger. So now incorporating more bots into their selling programs so that they start, turning it on, especially as the weeks gets into, closer to closing. And now we're below all major moving averages here. And I would even say that, I really don't like playing these ranges especially on a weekend, even on like a regular weekday. I don't like playing these ranges. I would rather play below this area right here. But I do think that, you'd probably be right in looking at this area right here as a continuation point, of which we came like $2 shy on that last little red dildo to the downside of a breaking, and that would initiate a move down into this liquid zone right here, which will put in a lovely little rectangle of peace and prosperity right here as well. And I would look for a short-term bounce off there, but the second that this one breaks right here, then you got a problem, because next level is all the way down at the very least to 8,700, and realistically I have a feeling that that's when you can get some nice wiki action into 85.50ish region. 85.50 is like I said, that's probably going to be your panicking area, because then you really can't make an argument for this anymore that this is anything but a high term time frame reversal. And we are getting ready for, looking at everything else, multi-$1,000, at least $1,000 move, probably more, with the areas that we spoke in mind. Also, I should denote that on the 2-day, we should revisit this. And the 2-day is problematic because it is in the process of reverting its trend as well. Here's your high, lower high, presumably so. There's your low, higher low. But then we get a reversal over here because we have made a lower low below that. I mean, we closed on the low before. So at the very least, it's going to be, at the very least, it's just the same lows but lower highs at the same time. So things are changed around here. That's kind of the picture that I'm painting. Anyways, let's go back into the lower term timeframes. I'm getting way bifurcated in my own analysis, but keep in mind 4-hour Stokes are right at the neutral zone and looking like they want to cross down. What would cause them to cross down officially? Well, any sort of a 4-hour total closure below where? Below 90.90. Where's 90.90? That's a 10 simple. So as long as we're closing below all major moving averages here on the same time frame, not only are we going to see that, but we're also going to see 4-hour RSI get stuck into the bearish control zone after a very quick rejection to the top side above. And more importantly, we're going to see the moving average on this, the EMA on this, actually move down into the top side of the bearish control zone. So it'll very likely provide a resistance there, assuming that all those conditions are met on the next closure, which happens in 11 minutes. So we'll probably see this one together. And historical volatility percentile on the 4 hours even very low itself. Although we're not getting the same reads there, kind of lining up with the daily ones just yet. So it still probably takes a few days before we actually see like the real move from this. If I had to guess, I would guess like, you know, midweek, this coming week. But again, you know, that's an opinion. When we're talking about a major move happening, we're only doing that because from a percentile perspective, there's a strong probability of that happening because we are at an outlier on a mean reverted indicator, which means that, well, that's just, you're going to be right on that at some point in time. But still, I'd want to see like the weekly closure here. And it does look like it's going to try to put in a little bit of a bouncy bounce here first, maybe back up to like 9100-ish region and play out some more sideways and just bore the shit out of people. Okay. Hourly momentum oscillator is obviously down as well. By hourly turning down at the same time as well. Coming from the same area, should add to 3 hours doing the same thing. I mean, this is like naturally these timeframes should look like each other, but a lot of the times you'll find that they do not. And when they do look like each other, coming from the same areas, that's when you usually do see price action follow through. And I think that that's what we're seeing right now. Let's go to the 12 hour. What's the 12 hour doing? I think we already went over this one. 12-hour Stokes, being, remember when they called this one out yesterday, this trend line right here, hey, must have it on this, yeah, there, that's the right chart. This trend line right here, given our last 3 major highs, actually relatively well, going all the way back to 30th of May on this high right here, this high right here, and then more recently on this high right here, all these highs coming at much lower price points. And this is kind of getting like the old switch up from this trend line here. So as long as we're being governed by this trend line, which by the way, just rejected from going into the bullish control zone, it's looking like a new change of behavior as far as, you know, our 12-hour and very likely our daily goes, which would further confirm, you know, a reversal behavior as well. So a change of behavior after going to the upside, obviously to the fucking downside, right? So yeah, and we actually do have the 236 coming in at 8,900. So, you know, it probably takes a little bit of time to break that. It's also going to be in line with the 200 exponential moving average on the 12-hour as well. Historical volatility percentile on 12-hour very much crushed. I mean, we can make relationships between all these different time frames, but like I said, I'm going to try to keep this video a little bit on the shorter side, which I'm doing a terrible job of thus far. Okay, all right, great job, Krown, great fucking job. Let's go look at the weekly. So the weekly is strange here. The weekly is actually very strange here. The weekly to me looks to me like it's either gonna come down to 86 or 8,700 or pop back up above wherever the 10 simple is, which is 9,200-ish region. So overall, I think it's going to be it's obviously going to take a little bit of patience to wait till the weekly close tonight, which is obviously going to be the same as the daily close, and I think even the 2-day close as well. Maybe 3-day close. Oh, here comes the fucking dishes. Dishes times, bitches. Jesus, dishes get stitches, motherfucker. Had enough of this bullshit. 3-day looks very obviously bearishly inclined here too. Looks like it wants to head down to 8,700 actually. But as far as the weekly goes, you know, as long as we close below 9,200, the 10 simple on this one, it's pressure down still. Keep in mind, momentum oscillators will naturally turn down alongside it as well. Very likely coming back down below the critical zone on this, which is not confirmed. That is actually very much not confirmed, and I don't have a tool for that. Although I do have a tool that would suggest that we keep the momentum to the downside as long as we're below 9,800 essentially on a weekly closure. So that looks quite likely right now. And keep in mind that CMEs have already closed this week out, and CMEs did close at 90.60, which does have about a $50 premium on spot price action, which also did confirm below the exponential here as well, which looks to me like it does want to head back down, at the very least test around the edge of the bearish control zone. So all these things working together, and I do think that if you didn't already catch the drift of my bias boner, it's certainly to the downside, especially as long as below 9,300. Above 9,300, yep, I do look for another $300 move to the upside. That makes the upside propositions a lot more interesting, but still, to get like very excited about actual upside, need to see above really 9,900, 10,000-ish region. Then we could talk about 11,000, 11,500, and maybe even further targets after that. But it's just not very close to price action right now, so I don't think it's appropriate to speak about, because that's when you get the moon boys all on your case. Looking at the 3-day right here, it's still too early to call, but it does look to me like it wants to head down to the 55. It looks very weak along the 21, although usually your first kind of loss of it does get like a pitiful try back above. We haven't really gotten that yet. I mean, it tried right here, got rejected on the next one. Usually you see more than that. Usually you see something like I'm trying to find a good example of where it loses the 21 right here, and then boom, big move up, but eventually falters alongside it anyways. So I would still be a little bit defense against that. Of course, same thing here on HVP, very much crushed. And I should also follow up on the daily jewel sell signals too, because we have seen we have been following this for quite some time. Decent sell or okay sell signal right here for the very aggressive people. They probably took that. Very good sell signal right here on the 3rd of June. That was when Bitcoin was in this area, not in the actual high, but around like 9,800. Continuation Hollier short right here, it's 9th of June. Another continuation sell signal right here, 24th of June. And then it kind of looks like it's even maybe lining up again. As long as we're below 9,300, it will line up again. So keep an eye on that. By the way, for the people who have the Jewel and for the people who don't even have the Jewel, Morinfall's Jewel channel is officially live. The link is in the description below. Definitely check it out, because he's gonna give you the information of the Jewel. So there you go. From the creator himself. Fucking creator himself. He does use it a lot differently than me. He's a lot more cavalier. He's a lot more aggressive. I am not, because I don't really think that you need to be with it. It's too fucking powerful already. I shouldn't say that. Let's see. We have anything to look at in traditional markets because they haven't been open. That would be the one thing that makes me skeptical here. I'm bullish on traditional markets still, as long as we're above the pivots that we mentioned yesterday. So nothing really new to update there. Let's go to Mr. Buterol and see how he's doing. Mr. Buterol looks like he could still pull through to the upside. Actually, I'd say that it's certainly looking a lot less bearish than Bitcoin. If I was just looking at Buterol, I'd actually be probably bullish here. Weekly looks okay. Weekly actually even has a golden cross on it as well. A new golden cross, I should say, and it's riding all major moving averages. Buterol would look bullish to me, but I don't think that I can be bullish on one and bearish on the other. But Buterol looks like he wants to head back up to like 244. If I had to call that one. But again, same sort of continuation point right here. 30th of June's high, 233. And then, yeah, I'd target a move back up towards this prior high. And this would look pretty damn good. And this looks a lot more orderly. This looks a lot better. So if there is, if there's a couple big bullish things for Bitcoin, it would be both Buterol strength or perceived strength, although, who's leading? Typically it's Bitcoin. And then also the strength in traditional markets, which I'm looking for new all-time highs coming into NASDAQ this week. Maybe a pullback, could even get all the way back down to like 99.50. But overall, man, I'm looking for new all-time highs there. And yeah, looking nice. What about Mrs. Litecoin? What's she doing? Ooh, looks like a death cross and really turning on to the downside. I'd actually be looking, just like Mr. Buterol is overall bullish, I'd be looking for Mrs. Litecoin to head back down to 36.70. Stellar. Oh, it's shitcoin time. Stellar looks under pressure as well. Next target to the downside, 0.53. Monero getting rejected by the 200 simple and 200 exponential moving average. If it fails below the 200, especially next week, but even this week, pressure is down. I'd be looking for a move back down here. It does look like it's putting another macro lower high. I mean, this is what the chart really looks like. But above the 200 exponential moving average, I'm bullish. I'm actually very bullish above there. Maybe even as much as a move to like $88 and beyond. Ripple, same thing as Mrs. Litecoin, death cross on the weekly in progress. Looks like it wants to head back down to 14.70. EOS, same thing, nasty, 202. Neo, same thing, nasty, 860. Tron Cash looks better, actually. This one looks bullish, 0.18. The problem is that they're all going to move in the same direction, So it's like, why am I looking at those things when Bitcoin and maybe to a lesser extent Buterol are going to lead this? And right now Bitcoin's looking bearish, Buterol is looking bullish, so makes it difficult. Traditional markets looking bullish, so also difficult. But keep in mind that CMEs did close the week at 90.60, so very likely we do kind of hang around here until the end of the day, and then decide a direction by the time that I'm sleeping, which is really nice. Let's go check out. Do I want to check anything out here? Still, from a troll underband perspective, we are tight as fuck. This is about as contracted as we've seen them pretty much ever. Only a few other times in history we've actually seen more than this. And as long as we have a negative slope on the median band and we're below it, I do look for another test down here towards 8,900. And kind of like ride that lower side of the band. I'm curious what the weekly looks like as well. Remember, the weekly does have hidden bearish divergence on weekly MACD histogram, and 20-something moving average actually even has the negative slope there too, and that would be a great target if this one does break down below 8,700, especially. Extremely likely. On a daily closure too, perhaps. Maybe a little bit more conservative just because we've been patient for so long. Stoke RSI turning down as well. I usually don't look at this at all, but I'm bored, and we've been looking at the same fucking stale charts for months now, really. Weekly Stokes with my settings, same thing here as well. Anytime that we've seen above this region and then comes back down below the critical zone, that's precipitating, major pullbacks like what we saw right here. You already know where I'm going. This is 43%. We saw obviously $20,000 Bitcoin high being put on there. That was its own 68% pullback. Crash. 30% pullback right there. How can we call this a pullback, man? 40% pullback right there, 40% pullback right there, 35 right there, 34 right there, 40 right there. So you kind of catch my drift right now. Now, while those reads actually were not nearly as high, or sorry, not nearly as low above the critical zone as what we're seeing right now, that would be a good counterpoint to what I'm saying. But they all did produce pretty nasty results overall. And for perspective, taking off 40% off of our highs here puts us back down around 6,400, 200 exponential average on the weekly, by the way. That's 40%. If we took off 30%, for example, that put us down at the low 7,000s, mid 7,000s, which is kind of where I'm a little bit more angled towards. And then I'd like to keep an open mind if Bitcoin were to actually get there. It's very interesting right now because I don't really feel like I have a good read on the market sentiment. Like I typically do not anyways, but right now I don't really have a good read for it. Are people bullish or bearish? I don't know. I think that people are boorish right now. People aren't even watching really, although there's a shit ton of open interest. So you can't really say that either. Let's go look at Link versus Bitcoin. Bullish as fuck. Weekly looks really, really good. Any sort of a close here or higher, and I'm looking for new all-time highs coming into next week. Cardano looking very nice right now, but I do think that we've seen the high for this particular drive, probably coming back down to 950, 980-ish region before anything else. We already looked at Link, sorry. Let's go look at Mr. Buteral versus Bitcoin. 0.025. Looks bullish actually. Yeah, pretty good chart here actually. In fact, I'd be looking for this to pop back up to 0.0276, 275. Looks fine. So yeah. Alrighty, let's go look at let's go back down to the lower term time frames and let's kind of plot out our ranges, and then we'll look at probabilities, and then we'll send it off. Already 30 minutes into this bitch. Okay, 9,300 the upside. That's my continuation point. I really like basing trades around there as well, so take that as you will. Of course, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, and I'd never be. And to the downside, 8,900 probably still does it, especially on a daily or 12-hour or 4-hour closure. I mean, any sort of closure really. But even just like getting back down there, that looks bad enough to very likely break it anyways. Here's the interesting thing, though. We have actually seen the flippening once again of downside probability or favorable downside probability versus favorable upside probability. Now remember, the downside probability does correlate with a bigger move. The upside probability only correlates with a short-term and medium-term move, which fair enough, it's very tradable, absolutely. $300 is, and could also be the start of something bigger. But keep this in mind, technically speaking, the probabilities have shifted in the favor of the upside. So naturally, at the longer that Bitcoin goes sideways here without really breaking down below, especially 9,000, the more and more inherently bullish it will get. But I do think that would take, some time in and of itself as well. So bears are on the clock here. Bears are certainly on the clock. We also do see Bally and Pig's moms starting to turn up here as well. I'm curious what the 12 hours showing. 12 hours turning up as well too. So yeah, there's still some pretty good counterpoints to being bearish, very good counterpoints. But both of these probabilities are very high, very, 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 very high for both sides. So keep that in mind. And realistically, we could also use 9,700 because that would be a little bit more appropriate for the 8,900 counterpart, and that's really 8.5% versus 29%. But of course, getting back above 9,300 very likely catalyzes a move back up to that region. So, take one before the next, and I do think that would be appropriate. I said I want to talk about high time frame stuff here, but because it is Sunday and because there's really not too many new things to be speaking about, monthly I think is always good for bias projecting, because I'm not bearish on the monthly. The monthly can come all the way down to low 7,000 and still remain overall fine. Monthly momentum oscillators would turn to the downside, but we have a long month to go. I just want to show that, as far as structure goes, it's really not problematic until we're back down below, mid 6,000s from like a macro perspective to the downside. So I want to be very careful in what I state here, because while I do think that Bitcoin can break down, I don't think it's a macro reversal. I do think that Bitcoin's actually long-term fine, especially as long as, NASDAQ is fine, which looks phenomenal. And as long as E-mini futures for SPY are fine as well, which looks decent, decently enough right there too. So I do think that this is obviously relevant. For long-term sort of biases, so to speak, and that would kind of really pull me back from getting like too bearish, even if Bitcoin does break to the downside. So I'd be very, 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 very cautious, because if you do see 8,700 break, and especially 8,500 break, I do think that you're going to see a shit ton of people start to panic and talk about targets back down to like 4,000, 5,000, 3,000, whatever the fuck. I think that it'd be very possible to see Bitcoin put in a major low somewhere in like the mid 7,000s, maybe even upper 8,000s possible. And of course, the accumulation distribution indicator, as we've been following as well, still maintaining a positive slope coming into the month of July. So that is a big deal. And even hitting the same trend line that's held up our last few major lows, going all the way back to June 2015. This low right here, and more recently, this low right here. So all that's good. But this is, on a monthly, so we don't really expect it to play out like today. maybe not even this month, maybe not even next month. But yeah, going back down to the lower term timeframes here, let's start to wrap this one up. Essentially, I'm essentially bearish as long as below 9,300. Not to mean that Bitcoin can't get back above 9,300. It's just there's no change of behavior even from a short term time frame perspective as long as we're below there. I'm curious, did we even put in like some hidden bearish divergence here? No, there's actually no real divergence to be spoken about just yet. It looks to me like Bitcoin probably gives another try to like 8,900 or 8,950 blue box right here before anything else. But does it break down before we get a new weekly? Probably not. Does it break down before New York Stock Exchange opens tomorrow? Probably not. But I do think that, we could get a wick up there, close back, above a little bit above 9,000 and play out some more sideways bullshit here. Above 9,300 though, I would look for a quick extension to 9,550 to 9,600-ish region right here. If that area is exceeded, then I'd extend those targets to 99. To the downside, below 8,950 on below 8,900 on a 4-hour closure, and I'd be looking for extension to 8,700. This area is difficult right here, because I really would look for a bounce both here and here, which are only about $200 apart between 87 and 85. But 85, obviously the last major low before the next sort of waterfall in price action. So maybe a small bounce here and then fail, and then come down to 85. Try like a real bounce there, and then if that one does fail, then very likely big move down to low 8,000s, like 8,100. And then we'll come back in time and reconvene. But for right now, all lower term time frame momentum oscillators are positioned to the downside, as well as 12-hour, as well as daily working its way too. So I do think that Bitcoin is very likely to test into the mid, maybe even and probably low 8,000s. Granted all that, with contingency above 9,300. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's that simple. At least for myself. Not to say that's right or wrong, but it does offer up a decent enough edge to trade off of, at least in my experience. So with that said, I'd like to wish you well once again. Hope that your holiday was safe as fuck. I hope if it was just a regular Saturday for you, I also hope that was an enjoyable Saturday, an enjoyable Sunday to begin the day as we prepare some offerings for perhaps Bera or maybe even Bula Jesus. With that said, take care, and until next time.